Day 21 of fast drafting my work in progress. Yep, that's right, 3 full weeks. Not consecutive days, though, since I took a couple weeks off to edit Restless Spirits Book 2. But today marks the 3 week point of me fast drafting Battleborn Bride, and I am back on track. I was able to get through all of the chapters that I reread. I lost about 1,500 words in the process because I was cleaning things up. Sometimes I overwrite a little bit. And even though this is a historical, I want the language to be relatable to young adults. So I'm sure I'm going to have to do quite a bit of rewriting of my language just to make sure that it's not too unwieldy. But it was a good day. It was a productive day. I'm up to chapter 15 of the book, and it is coming along well. It's funny because I was talking to JT about it earlier, and I mentioned that I was up to a point where a sanitary ball was being held in Carson City. This is something I found in a newspaper on Chronicling America. So it's I think it was the Gold Hill Daily News. Gold Hill is near Virginia City. They are right across the divide, I guess you would say, from each other. And you would probably have to be a local to understand what they mean by that. But it is up on the hill in the Comstock area. And I could not find any Carson City papers digitized for that period of time. I don't know if our local paper maybe had briefly gone out of existence. But I've been relying on the Gold Hill paper because they do talk about what happens in Carson City a little bit. The sanitary ball was something that they were holding to raise funds to help pay for the medical care and uniforms of the soldiers who were fighting back east. And I guess a lot of communities actually had these kind of events. They also had local sanitary fairs, and the proceeds again would go to the soldiers back east. The other thing that happened at this period of time, one of the organizers of the sanitary ball was a woman named Molly Clemens, who was the sister of Sam Clemens, otherwise known as Mark Twain. And Molly and her husband, Orion, who was the territorial secretary, had lost their daughter, Jenny, back at the beginning of February. So this ball was held in May, and they were grieving their daughter. So she was one of the women who was involved in this. And I feel that at the time, a lot of people would have been grieving someone based on what was happening in the country. So it was not unusual for them to really want to keep busy, to not think so much about what they were going through, and to try to be helpful because everybody hoped that the war would soon be over. So they put on the sanitary ball, and apparently it was a success. And then, of course, Molly's brother, Sam Clemens, or Mark Twain, had to go and write an article where I'm not even sure why he did this. He often wrote things, hoaxes. He was very good at hyperbole and making things up and making things bigger than they actually were. So he said that the women who had put on the sanitary ball were diverting the funds from the sanitary commission to what they called a miscegenation group, which meant that they were coming out against the relationships between whites and non-whites. So miscegenation is and I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. I've only read it, but it is the idea of whites and non-whites being in intimate relationships or marrying each other. So this was not a good look for Molly or any of the other women involved, and I don't believe that any of them actually believed in the idea of miscegenation or miscegenation. And this was one of the things that ended up getting Mark Twain run out of the area because he left in May of 1864, never to return. Oh, I take that back. He didn't live here again. He did stop by a couple times to give presentations to talk about his travels because he eventually ended up going to the Sandwich Islands, Hawaii, and he wrote a lot about those types of things. But putting his sister-in-law in a hoax article like that, I don't know that he mentioned her by name, but he was talking about the women who had put on the sanitary ball, and he maybe unintentionally included her in that group. I don't know, but a lot of people were upset with him. And that followed another hoax article that he had published the prior fall, which plays a big part in my story. And I'm not going to mention too much about that article just now, but that article, actually, the one he published in the fall, has a lot of impact on the main character of my book for reasons that will be seen if anyone reads the book. So I found it interesting to learn that Mark Twain was causing a bit of trouble here in Nevada before he left. The outcome of him publishing that article was he apologized, but people were not happy with him, so they did not really accept his apology. And then an editor from a competing newspaper may have challenged him to a duel. Now, knowing Mark Twain, and after Mark Twain had written several hoax articles, I don't know that anyone believed that he had been challenged to a duel. He may have just said that to save face, and he basically hightailed it out of Nevada on May 29th, 1864 for San Francisco, where he got a job, and like I said, he never lived here again. Now, Orion, his brother, remained territorial secretary and actually ran for Secretary of State once Nevada achieved statehood. When that didn't happen, he was not elected. He and Molly returned to Iowa, I believe. I think they went back to Keokuk, Iowa, where they had lived, where Molly was from. And so they returned to the Midwest, and they also never returned here. But there are still a couple of things linking Mark Twain and Orion and Molly Clemens to Carson City. The house that they lived in still stands on the west side of town, and I will do a video over there at some point when I have a little more time. And also, Orion and Molly's daughter Jenny is buried in our local cemetery, Lone Mountain. So I will also probably do a video at Lone Mountain at some point, just to show the grave and those connections to the Clemens family and Mark Twain. So it's fun to be able to sprinkle those little details into the book, and I'm really relying a lot on Chronicling America for some small details because the history books don't always give the more human information. Not that I can believe every single article I read, but I try to find as many articles with similar information, and I think that the information that matches up from article to article is probably pretty close to the truth. So that is how I am working this. History is malleable. It is written by people who are sometimes the victors, so to speak, but it's also written by people who are looking at information with a certain understanding based on the period of time in which they live. So my understanding of the history that I'm finding right now may not match the understanding of history that someone in the future might have. And that's what makes historical fiction so interesting, because it is a representation not only of the time period I'm writing about, but it's representing the time period that I live in. And I'm hoping through this book that I'm not only providing a little bit of historical background, but I also hope I give readers the idea that they need to be careful, especially when it comes to Mark Twain. I think that including his hoax articles is very important because we have a lot of false information floating around on social media these days, and we don't know how much of the actual media we can trust because media always has some kind of bias to it, depending on the leanings of the people involved. So nothing can be taken at face value. Everybody needs a little bit more, I guess, media literacy is the term that I learned. So I'm hoping that this book will at least give the readers the idea that they need to be careful about trusting everything they read, and that maybe it's a good idea to look at multiple sources before coming to a decision about what's real and what's not. So that's been my exciting day. I've spent a good majority of it working on Battleborn Bride. I'm having a great time. I'm really enjoying poking through the historical elements. I am just starting chapter 15, I think. So I have 6 chapters, and like I said, I will be getting Restless Spirits Book 2 back on May 1st, which will be over here somewhere. So I'm hopeful that Battleborn Bride, this draft of it, I'm hopeful I can get that done by Thursday. 6 chapters in 4 days. I could be pushing it, but I should be pretty close. I'll be a lot closer than I was the last time I got my manuscript back for the paranormal romance. So hopefully this will be a quick completion of this project, and I can get the edits done on Restless Spirits Book 2, get that back for the proofreading, and then maybe smooth out the last little bit of Battleborn Bride before I send that off to the editors, because getting close. We're into the last few days of April already and about to head into May. I can't believe it. It's just wild how fast the time goes, but I think that it's good to keep busy. And busyness is what makes the time go so quickly. So the days that drag are usually the ones that I don't enjoy, because usually it's due to the fact that I'm not feeling well or something, or I have to do something I don't want to do. And I guess I prefer to have the days that fly by, because that means I'm enjoying myself. So that's where I stand on Battleborn Bride right now, and I will continue to work diligently on it for the next few days in the hopes of getting it wrapped up by Thursday. I want to have it maybe Friday morning. If we'll see when I get my manuscript back. It doesn't always come in first thing. It might be evening before that comes in, which would mean I'd have Friday to work on Battleborn Bride as well. And if that's the case, I'm pretty sure I could get it wrapped up. I think I'm close enough. As long as I don't allow myself to wander too far into the newspaper articles. I have information in my timeline and my outline that I can include in the story, but I like to pepper in a little of some of the personal reflections that people have about certain events that are happening, just to make it more realistic. And it can take a little bit longer to find those. So that's where I'm slowing things down. But I just need to remind myself that since I'm fast drafting, I should just put in the elements that I want to include for now, and I can go back and pad it with those little extra bits later, because I think that's really what I need to do for at least the next few days. These last few chapters, I'm going to try my best to rush through them and just get down as much of the detail as I can, and then I can smooth it out a little bit later. So I hope you've had a wonderful weekend and that you are looking forward to a fun and productive week, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow. I'm Cassidy Carson, and this is The Life of a Writer. Take care.